This question comes from Zion, who asks, what if the Earth's core suddenly stopped being hot? Zion, I do not want to judge anyone too quickly, but this is the kind of question that makes it sound like you may have a personal issue with the continued existence of planets. To understand the problem, we need to talk about what the core is doing for us right now. The center of the Earth is not just warm, it is unimaginably hot. The inner core is roughly as hot as the surface of the Sun, and around it is a churning outer core made of liquid iron and nickel. That moving metal acts like a giant dynamo, generating Earth's magnetic field. The core also leaks heat upward into the mantle, helping drive the slow overturning motions that power plate tectonics, volcanism, and the long geological life of the planet. So when Zayan asks what would happen if the core suddenly stopped being hot, the first thing we have to decide is what that means. If we mean the core somehow loses its heat instantly, then a truly absurd amount of energy has just vanished from the middle of the Earth. This is not a normal cooling process. This is not the planet had a bad day. This is physics stepping outside, locking the door behind it, and refusing to explain itself. The good news is that if you are standing on the surface when this happens, you probably do not notice anything in the first second. You are not immediately cooked. You are not frozen. The ground beneath your feet is still cool compared with the deep earth, and rock is a very good insulator. The crust does not instantly transmit the news from the center up to your shoes. If you are eating lunch, you can keep eating lunch. If you are in traffic, unfortunately, you can keep being in traffic. But deep below you, things have gone catastrophically wrong. The outer core is liquid because it is both under enormous pressure and extremely hot. Take away enough heat, and that liquid iron no longer wants to stay liquid. It begins to solidify. The giant rolling currents of metal that create the magnetic field start to die out. Earth's dynamo is not a decorative feature. It is the invisible machine that helps protect the planet from the solar wind, a constant stream of charged particles blowing off the sun. Without that moving liquid metal, the magnetic field would begin to weaken, not necessarily in a dramatic movie-style blink, where compasses spin and the sky explodes, but fast enough on geological terms to become a serious problem. The magnetosphere would shrink. More charged particles would penetrate near-Earth space. Satellites would start taking heavier radiation damage. Electronics in orbit would fail more often. Communication systems would get noisier. High-altitude aviation would become riskier. Auroras would probably become brighter and appear in stranger places, which would be beautiful in exactly the way that a warning light is beautiful. And then there is the mechanical problem. Cold things contract. If the core suddenly loses heat, it should also lose volume. Exactly how much depends on details that become difficult to calculate once we enter the part of the thought experiment labeled impossible magic event. But the basic issue is clear. The center of the planet would be trying to shrink while the outer layers are still where they were a moment ago. Earth does not handle that kind of internal mismatch gracefully. The mantle and crust would have to readjust. Fault systems all over the globe would feel it. You could get a burst of severe earthquakes, maybe on a scale unlike anything in recorded history, as the planet tries to settle into a new shape around a suddenly denser, colder center. The surface would not crack open and reveal a glowing pit to the underworld. In fact, the exact opposite is true. The deep Earth would be shutting down, but the adjustment could still be violent enough to flatten cities and reorganize coastlines. The weird part is that the long-term disaster would matter more than the short-term one. Even after the core stops heating the mantle from below, Earth does not instantly become geologically dead. The mantle still contains heat of its own, including heat from radioactive decay. So volcanoes do not all switch off by dinner time. Continents do not stop drifting before the weekend. But the entire engine begins to lose power. Mantle convection slows. Plate tectonics weakens. The creation of new seafloor starts to taper off. Volcanic outgassing declines. And this matters because plate tectonics is not just how mountains happen. It is part of Earth's climate control system. Over long periods, volcanoes return carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, while weathering and ocean chemistry pull it back out. It is a slow planetary thermostat. If you start turning off the geological recycling system, you are not just calming the Earth down. You are breaking the machinery that helps keep the surface habitable. So what kills people first? Oddly enough, probably not the missing heat. If you survive the quakes and the infrastructure collapse, the next major threat would come from the sky and from time. With a weakening magnetic field, the upper atmosphere becomes more exposed to the solar wind. Earth's gravity is still strong enough to hold on to most of the atmosphere for a very long time, so the air does not simply blow away overnight. This is not a everyone suffocates by Thursday scenario. But over millions of years, the atmosphere becomes easier to strip and alter. Radiation at the surface becomes a bigger problem, especially as ozone chemistry and space weather interactions get messier. At the same time as volcanism fades and the carbon cycle breaks down, carbon dioxide in the air keeps getting locked away in rocks and sediments without being replenished at the same rate. Greenhouse warming weakens, the planet cools, ice spreads. Eventually, Earth starts heading toward the kind of planetary future Mars knows a little too well. Less magnetic shielding, less geological activity, less atmospheric resilience, and a world that becomes quieter, colder, and harder to live on with every passing age. So if the Earth's core suddenly stopped being hot, the surface would not instantly turn into lava or explode into space. For a brief moment, life at ground level might seem almost normal, but underneath that normal moment, the deepest systems that keep Earth active, shielded and alive would already be failing. It would not be the end of the world in the cinematic sense. It would be worse in a way. It would be the beginning of Earth slowly turning from a living planet into a monument.